Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. In this episode, you will hear part one of my conversation with Murillo Soranso from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of Digication Scholars Conversations can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. Today we have Murillo Soranso, the Assistant Dean at First Year Experience at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign here with us. Thanks for joining, Murillo.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeffrey. It's a pleasure to be here and speak to you today.
Murillo, I have heard so much about you. This is actually the first time we meet.
That's right. It is the
I
first
think.
time we meet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think at least maybe a long time ago we might have met during a call or something. But you and I have a mutual friend, Kate Labor,
Yes,
instructional designer extraordinaire
she is.
at Urbana Champaign. She's wonderful, and she had told me so much about your program and your teaching and how creative you are, and more sort of almost like the most unusual part is you apply all of that usually typically apply to smaller classes, smaller programs, those programs where you have
Mhm.
12 students where you can really sort of custom tailor to every student's need, but you do
Right.
it at a giant course. Right, LAS 1, am I
LAS
right?
101, correctly. LAS
Yeah, so
101,
why don't
design your first year experience.
yeah, so why don't we start there? Just tell us a little bit about your role and sort of what that means, for first year experience, and then we go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. First, yeah, Kate is a definitely a great person. Like you said, instructional design extraordinary. She's very generous with her description of me. So, Kate, if you're listening, thank you for the introduction. It's been great. Um, and yes, Jeff. So, as an assistant dean of first year experience now there here at Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, but specifically with the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, that's really my focus. We have a fairly decentralized system, as a large public institution would have. So, I have colleagues in the College of Business, in Granger College of Engineering. We have that they're doing the same thing that I am doing. So we're all kind of have our doing our own thing with first year experience. So my role focus in particular with the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I started in this role about 5 years ago. Now it's been 5 years. Time flies, and it started there. And what I inherited was a first year experience course. That at the time was 16 weeks. So he went for the whole semester, but at the time was really like a hodgepodge of everything. It was really let's fit these in. Let's talk about career development. Let's talk about well-being. Let's talk about of course how you do college and how do you study, and so it's kind of cramming everything into one course, right? And that's usually the challenge that I think first year courses have. Everybody sees you as that gateway. They're like, oh, let's put this into first year experience. Let's put that. I have to say, the course when I inherited wasn't at that level because the my predecessor, Ruth Hoffman, really did a great job of saying no to a lot of the folks that just wanted to come in and talk to our students. But there were ways that we can still get them, before our students. And we have a textbook, and we have our learning management system. So we had those spaces in there. But in front of the classroom, we are very protective of who comes, before our students. So right now, the model, and again, a model that I inherited and that has worked wonderfully, is that we have peer educators. So we have peer educators teaching the incoming students. So we go through a selection process that we select juniors and seniors to then deliver the content that we produce for them. We call them LAS interns. So we do call this as an internship experience, and they get credit for that experience. So they get 3 hours. The whole package is 3 hours. They do 1 hour in the spring when we train them at a high level about leadership skills and professional development, and some idea and history of the program. And then in the fall, when they're actually delivering the course, they're also taking a a course concurrently as they are teaching it, and we are also challenging them on their professional and personal development and leadership development. So with that, that course, like I said, was 16 weeks. And then after doing, so when I came in, one of my first priorities was to, one, listen and learn, and really come up with a strategic plan of how we were going to take that program to the next, to the next step. And at the time, that really married really well with what my associate dean, Barbara Hensenbaum, really wanted to do for our students in general in LAS, which we were really thinking about this idea of life and career, and we couldn't really put a finger on it. Like, we want everyone to have a professional plan. Well, that's not going to work. Or we want, so we were trying to work something, and then we came across design thinking and how to apply design thinking. And at that time, designing your life book really was like our framework and how to do that. And lo and behold, folks at Stanford have been doing a life design studio for folks that want to learn more about how to apply design thinking methods and mindsets into higher education. So me, Associate Dean Hansen Bad, and another colleague went to Stanford and took the course, went through the actual life design studio that the students are exposed to. Life changing. It was amazing. And then for the 2 days, so it was a week long experience. So the 3 days, they really are exposing you to the class. So it's like a class condensed into like 3 days. And then the last 2 days, it's really then, okay, now we're putting on our administrator hats and seeing how can we bring this back to the campus. So now, before we did that, I was already prototyping and playing around with, okay, how is these 101 course, these orientation course, going to look differently. So we had already made some decisions, things like, from a 16-week, it turned into an 8-week. We still kept the peer educator component because we always think that that's the strongest part of the program. Students love it. The students that take it love it. They're making a connection. The interns, the peer educators themselves love it. So we're definitely not doing away with that, or changing in any way. If nothing else, we actually now we've increased positions to lead interns. So those that choose to return, they can take a step up and they can become lead interns now. And we're still developing that position every year. So prototyping and iterating. So came back from Stanford, and in the fall of 2018, we were ready to launch. So we again, so as you mentioned, the very beginning. Yes, Jeffrey, it's about 2,200 students that take this course every single fall. And I'm only talking about the first year students, because we also have a transfer course that's for our transfer students. It is optional, which, the one-on-one course, it is mandatory. So our enrollment is not as large, but it's still the students that decide. So that's an additional 200 students every semester, in addition to those first year students. So that's all to say, we really were looking, and then we started to. So again, beyond trying to put everything in there, we just said, okay, let's just really focus on the first year, right? So what do we want to just have students learn in their first year? So we also changed the name to Designing Your First Year Experience, because we want them to be co-creators and have ownership, co-authors, and have authorship of their self-authorship of their journey. But we tell them, this is a start, and we want them to practice things like being curious and being open to failure and trying things out and getting outside of their comfort zone, and radical collaboration. These are all mindsets that in some way, shape, or form live in the design thinking world. Um, and then, and this is where Digication and e-portfolios come in, because the culmination of all this, that's when we wanted to tell them, well, and then how do you tell your story? How do you collect the things that you've done, and then begin to tell a story about these journeys? So we know that we finish with them in the 8th week, but we tell them there's still a whole semester left from the fall, and then there's spring semester, and we try to have some engagements in there for them. But in many ways, I'm still building up. That's where I'm building up now. My focus now is building up those other engagement opportunities beyond the class. We feel like the class is in a good point now, and we can start to think about, okay, are there study abroad opportunities, are there service learning, what else is out there, and again, using tools to help them collect, curate, and tell their stories. And yes, and I've been deploying Digication over for over 2,000 students every single fall semester in county since 2018. So that was a lot. I'll let you process that.
So you are saying that we have a part of a big bill is because of you and your students.
Yes. Now, and then to put Kate into context, right? When the education, when the education was something that we knew that we wanted to work with, and again, at the time, I believe that Illinois had already contracted with education, so it was the platform that we were using, and that's how Kate and I came into each other's life, and she's been a great partner. I mean, from helping us imagining how to use the tool to really just connect us with your support group there, Jeff, and then the wonderful people that you have and provide support. Because our class, because being big, but we still wanted to provide the different sections. It has its challenges, even on a technical back end type of logistics. But again, those challenges have always been met with great success and customer support. So I appreciate that for sure.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. We have a wonderful team here, but it
Yeah,
is, the willingness to have this level of partnership that makes it work. And
absolutely.
you're absolutely right in that Kay is just, she really, she's the one who make all of these, more all of these things happen. So I'm glad that we're able to find such a great partner. And just another shout out to Kate as well. It's really beyond this that she has helped us with. We also have a wonderful partnership with the Illinois University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, with a very robust accessibility program that we had done with your
Hmm.
labs over there.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's really just amazing the amount of the facets, the different facets of things that we've been able to work with you. We've really enjoyed the partnership, and like you said, it's a large university, a lot of different things going on, and
yeah,
I felt like that we've been able to benefit from being part of this big ecosystem. um,
absolutely.
so let me ask you something. I want to sort of go back to you've said so many really awesome things. I want to sort of maybe uh, dive deeper into how you develop this kind of passion to sort of work with LAS students, to work with first year students. Is there something in your life that had made you so passionate about this? Because let's face it, it's not a lot of you're a professor, you're assistant dean, you could probably choose a lot of different paths. Um, and it's a big project. It's to me it feels like it's not the one that you could have done something easier.
Hmm.
So to take this on, to me, everyone that takes on this position has to have some special sauce, some special root cause that makes them want to do this. Can you tell me yours?
Sure. Well, when I think about my life, I do think that learning is central to everything that I do. When I believe in developing others. I believe that we are, lifelong learners. Whether you think you are or not, I really do think everybody learns. And there was a class in graduate school that I took, and it was brain-based learning theories. And what, like, and that, you learn that the the brain is wired for survival, is wired for learning. So even if with subtle messages or things that things that you see, like your brain is always learning whether you think or not. So that fit like a glove when I heard that, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Now I was already in grad school at that point, but I'm originally from Brazil, and I moved to the US when I was 17 in 1997 now. So well, it's going to be 24 years now in August 5th that I've been in the US and made the journey over here. But but I said, I'm going to go to school over there. Mind you, I didn't really have a clear plan on how to do that. I knew that I needed a visa and I needed to be physically, in the country. And then now luckily I had the support of an uncle of mine who, was already living in the US for a while. So I came to him. I came to live with him in Baltimore, Maryland. And in Baltimore, Maryland, I started my journey and went to a community college of Baltimore County there, Essex campus. From there, I transferred to Ithaca College in upstate New York. Now I did a bachelor's in computer science. So I know I'm here thinking like that's, I uh, wanted to work with computers, wanted to solve those kinds of problems. But again, it was one of those things that like it really felt like the decision was made for me, or I was really really intentional about it. And when I in college here, I was very involved. Student government. When I moved to Ithaca College, I was like, I need to live on campus. I want that kind of experience because you see it in the movies, right? Like if people are living in residence halls, like I want that kind of experience. So I was like, oh, I can become a resident advisor. I did that. I was still involved in SGA. I was part of a student leadership board and all that. And then once graduation came, it was post September 11. So I graduated. I'm a
Mm.
class of 2002. And between not knowing what I could do with a computer science degree, literally, like I was like, okay, I'm just gonna work with computers. Like that's what you do. It was like not quite that, but at the same time, I didn't really have a lot of people answering that question for me. But then, in a conversation with a career advisor back at Ithaca, he said, "Well, have you thought about higher education?" And I was like, "No, what do you mean?" It's like, "Well, your resident director is not doing this for free, right? The person who advises SJ is not doing this for." I was like, "Oh, I guess I mean they're having fun, I guess didn't think that was a career either." And I lo and behold decided to enroll in a higher education program at Florida International University. And after those 2 years were done, and it was one of the most formative years. I mean, talking about an institution that really gave me a lot and prepared me to be a strong professional in higher education. But I think today, too, looking back on my 15-year career, like these skills that I have are transferable, right? So really started with that, and then being at Illinois, and Illinois for the last 15 years or so has been very kind to me, from helping me to turning me into the professional that I am today, with amazing opportunities in housing first. So I did a traditional, university housing RD, area coordinator, and then but was again lucky and very grateful to this day that I was able to be sponsored for my green card through U of I at that point, which I know things are getting even tougher these days for international staffs like me. I every now and then I connect with someone that is asking for my journey, and I share it, but I also share. We said I just don't know how the landscape is. I know it's not like it was even 10 years, 5 years ago, which is it's a conversation for an entire podcast for sure. Um,
Mm.
but but and then went and did semester at sea. If you haven't heard from Semester at Sea, it's an organization that it is a ship that goes around the world, and it's a floating university. And I was a resident director in the ship, and in that experience, I've always wanted to do it, and then just the right time was there, and I applied, got a role in it as a resident director. And the fall of 2015 I spent in the ship. And then when I came back, I still knew that I wanted to go back to Illinois. So, and in the position it started as director, first year experience, and then I got promoted within that, and that's where I am today. But when I look, Jeffrey, at all this, I think what connects everything from the moment I left, even before I left Brazil, right? Like that learning about the culture, like remembering the light bulb going off on my head, like at a young age, was like, wait, like they're not speaking Portuguese, like when like there's you hear the cartoons and the movies dubbed, but then you learn like, oh, there's another language in the world somewhere, and I'm like, I want to learn that, I want to learn English. And it really, I think, even learning English for me to this day is one of my proudest achievements. That I'm able to not only learn like another different language, but learn a different culture. And learn how to be in a different culture, because I think that just has built my interpersonal and intercultural skills so much. But I see that learning thread throughout, and I can't see myself doing anything else but learning, developing others, teaching others, learning in the process. That's what gets me going.
Your it's amazing. Your passion is,
Oh,
I mean, obviously very clear, and I could only imagine schools who got to work with you. I mean, they are lucky too in that they got to have talents like you who care, obviously, first and foremost, so much about student learning. But it's also one that is not about a just a career, a bullet point in their resume, but you clearly, what drives you is how do you develop and help other people develop the skills and like you said, learning yourself as well. So
yeah,
it's you are a natural born educator. So I think that sometimes I think that there are um, people outside of the academia who they don't understand why some people teach and why, like, what makes a good teacher, and they just sort of like education was part of just a journey at some point they had to do, and then they just kind of experience it, and then they go into the workforce, or develop whatever they want to develop, and go do that, and they never took a really close look at the people that serve them, such as yourself. And in fact, you said even in your own undergraduate program, it's only at the very end when the career counselor said, "Hey, have you ever thought about it?" And
exactly.
then you're like, "Oh wait, there are people work here. There are like thousands of people that work here that
Exactly.
help me do the things that I do."
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it's a very thankless job, for that reason. Although I think that for someone who has 2,200 students per fall semester, you have plenty of people who probably write you thank you letters. That
Oh, it's great. Yeah,
it
no,
feels amazing,
absolutely.
right? Yeah.
And I have actually a folder in my email inbox that
Oh,
is for it's called good stuff. And whenever I get something, it gets filed in there, because we all need those pick me
you
ups every
should
now
put
and
it
then,
in a
right?
portfolio.
I should.
Wouldn't that
That's
be
a good
amazing?
idea.
Wouldn't that be amazing? I think that would
Yeah,
make an
right. A
amazing, like,
good stuff
yeah,
e-portfolio. There you go. That's a
yeah,
great
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
Absolutely. Take it out and make it a more dynamic and
Yeah.
living document. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that's those are that's it's I mean, I have the same feelings you do about that. It's one of the in my mind, it's one of the things that can that's sort of my way too to how I make a dent in the universe. And I think that you do the same. And what's so weird is that we have the weirdest parallel, even in
Really.
years. Yeah, I came to the US in 96.
Wow.
I and I had the same. I had a green card, or like a visa,
Yeah.
sponsored by the first place I taught at, and this whole culture, and what's amazing is that as so I guess you are a proper um, first gen, immigrant,
Hmm.
to here to the United States, and so am I. And I felt
Yeah.
the same way about learning the language, learning the culture, and all that.
Right.
And it is true that for us who those of us who didn't grow up here, we admire the United States from afar.
Right.
And it's through movies and
Yeah.
Hollywood and just, things that go, oh, they do it there like that, and we just kind of like, oh, yeah, they've got it made, and
Right.
and I remember
Absolutely.
coming here and it was really exciting. And but I think that looking back now, it is these kinds of um, interactions from people from all different parts of the world that make United States such a rich and culturally rich and exciting and interesting place. And And I think that there's a lot that we can reflect on, in the United States now, especially about, around, the issues of diversity and inclusion, equity,
Absolutely.
and identity and all of that too. But I do
Mhm.
think that it is still nevertheless one of the I feel the same as you do. I'm grateful
Oh, yeah. No.
for for having this opportunity, because I as much as I think that sometimes we complain here, um, many other places in the world, you don't even get the right to complain sometimes,
That is
or you don't
correct,
even know
yes.
to complain. You don't even know
Mhm.
that you can complain because it's that's just how things are, and that's that. So we
Absolutely.
actually have it pretty good here, yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
in my experience, even, I have to say, when that experience of living in Baltimore and then going to college here, it has been by far one of the most diverse places I've ever been. Because
mhm,
yes, Brazil is diverse. Don't get me wrong, but then at the same time, in terms, like for instance, our, we our populations from, Asia, or or East Asia, like I think I've interacted with people from Indian descent the first time here,
right,
in the
right,
US, for example. I mean, that's
yeah,
a small example, but that, again, I didn't grow up around people from
mhm,
that part of the world or with that culture, right? So learning here, um and so again, and that is a strength, that is such a strength of, of this country. And it's a little disheartening how we are engaging in conversations sometimes that don't see the strength of that, because that just makes you better. Is it hard? Yes, it's hard to, to go through those issues and talk about that, but in the end, I can only believe it makes us better for it.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's sort of a microcosm at a both at a meta and a micro,
Hmm.
and a macro level,
Yeah. Yeah.
so and that's, I guess that's part of the design, as being a place of immigrants,
Correct.
and that's something really special about that. What was it like as a sort of first gen immigrant student being in a community college? I mean, that is a system that I also find to be just amazing and fascinating. Now that I've worked with
Hmm.
many community colleges, some of the most amazing, educators really have dedicated their lives and their everything
Absolutely.
to it. Um, that must have had a big impression on you.
It did. I have nothing but respect. Again, my 2 years in there, and I made sure to graduate with an associate's degree so I can
Hmm.
be called an alum from the Community College of Baltimore County. When I first started in 1997, I'm sorry, 1998, it was Essex Community College, and then all the three community colleges in the Baltimore County area merged and became the Community College of Baltimore County system. Um, but I found a job working at the English and music department of the school, and I mean, the folks just were so generous to me. Like my two supervisors, the administrative support staff there, to this day, still keep in touch with them, and they're like, they're like my moms away from Brazil, right? Like, because they're worrying about me. And they were like, "Wow, you did this task too fast. Like, what do I give you now?" And because you want to do those things for them because they're being so generous to you. And then being part of the English, music department, as a work study, you know I was also in constant communication with all the professors in there, and I had great opportunities to, like, one, I'll never forget this. One of the professors was a, taught Shakespeare, and in the community college we read Twelfth Night, and I fell in love with Shakespeare. And I bought a book of his book of sonnets, and I was reading the book of sonnets in the in my desk, like, I was done with work and I was reading, and he passed by. He's like, "What are you reading?" It was like the sonnets. It was like, "Do you like Shakespeare?" It's like, "Oh, I'm loving it." Like, the 12th Night that we're reading now for literature class. It was like, would you be interested in going to DC with my group to go to the Elizabeth theater they have in there, which is it's a mock-up of the theater. It's like a replica. And I was like, are you serious? I'd love to do that. And he took him on the trip with it, and it's a lifelong learner group, right? So, and then he covered me. He was like, no, don't worry about it. It was just I
Wow.
was like, wow, I'm here in DC with amazing people seeing this play, like as if it was back in Shakespeare times. And again, just so grateful for all this experience. And again, all those courses that I took there had some impact on me, on my personal development, my professional development. Because for the most part, you're taking care of your gen eds, right? Which is again a
Mhm.
great strategy. If you can do that, and I talk to students, I talk to my family. Right now I'm actually getting ready for my family to get ready to move here. I have some younger brothers, and you bet that I'm talking to him about going to a community college, because again, for someone that I
Mhm.
didn't dominate the English language, as much as I thought I did coming here. And again, even on my language and English skills, it was amazing. It was amazing. So when I was time to transfer everything that I had done, I was prepared. I positioned myself really well to be accepted to all the transfer schools that I applied to with scholarship too. And
Mm.
so again, I can, and then one last thing, just to all that person I give a shout out to is Dr. Ray Rosenthal, which I was part of the honors program that she directed at the community college, and amazing mentor to this day. She just invited me to be a speaker this past April, to talk to outgoing students from the program, and from lessons learned. And I was the one that had graduated the longest. I have been removed 15 years. And I was like, I tell her all the time, you ask me to do something, I'll be there for you. It's how meaningful those relationships meant to me.
Well, that's amazing. I think that I think many people I spoke with, as myself included, there are educators in our lives. Hopefully, we're lucky enough that you
Hmm.
go to enough schools that you meet a handful of people, maybe even just a couple of people that feel like they've changed the course of your life, because these really incredibly rich experience. Sometimes you can't expect that to be everyone that you meet, right?
Right.
But the education institutions, I hope, is at least my romanticized Shakespearean idea of it, would be that it's designed to design for those opportunities to arise,
Yeah.
and 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 I do also love um, education because of that, especially in higher education. That sometimes you can do things like what you said. Like someone just say, "Hey, you're reading this book. Come with us." On this trip.
Right.
That's just so
Yeah,
amazing.
it was.
Yeah, and I bet that this is the kind of thing that, because you had that experience, you are basically, they paid it forward, and now you're probably doing it to your students too.
Yeah.
And so it may not be to a Shakespearean play, but it would be to some other opportunities like that. And you now realize how that opportunity could potentially change that person's life, and it doesn't cost much,
Right.
for you to go on and do that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, now that I think about it, um, just creating connections, creating connection. I tend to be really good about, oh, Jeff told me this, this about himself one day, and now I go and meet someone else. Oh, you should meet Jeff. I should
yeah.
connect you. And again, it's about that experience. Yeah, like I said, I might not be taking you to a play or something, but connecting on those, so folks can meet each other, can exchange ideas, can create those connections. That to me is very important.
Would I be honored to be on your Rolodex? Um,
Sounds good.
This concludes part one of our conversation with Murillo Soranso from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. To hear part two, be sure to subscribe to Digication Scholars Conversations on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Digication Scholars Conversations is brought to you by Digication, a technology platform powering the most innovative e-portfolio programs in K-12 and higher education. Our website can be found at Digication.com. This episode was produced by Drew Albanesius. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks for watching.